shoot a shot. I'm coming in hot.
Kane's in the building.
I grew up in Kaiser, went to McNary for the entirety of my high school career. Played football, played basketball, and I played basketball basically my whole life. Like, it was my main sport that I loved until I got a little bit bigger, wanted to start hitting people. I really started to like football a lot more. But yeah, I grew up with the same group of guys playing basketball, the same travel team through the KYBA Basketball Association on to McNary. I played my freshman year and eventually got cut after that, which is kind of where I decided to just play football more, but also just focus and try and do different things, which is kind of where I fell into producing videos. But that was kind of a huge turning point for me. I feel like when I got cut from the basketball team, it was like a kind of a big wake-up call, because I grew up in just a sports family. Kind of thought that sports were everything. That was all that really mattered to me and my sisters, like, for a long time growing up. And so to get cut or something like that hurt a lot. And just kind of glad I turned it into something else.
So when you didn't make the team, did you ever try to go back out for a team, like sophomore, junior? You kind of just said, like, I'm going to put that down and pick something else up?
Yeah, I had played for probably 10 years straight basketball. Been probably playing football for like 5 or 6. And so, yeah, I just kind of wanted to put it to rest. I mean, I loved watching my friends play. I mean, the same guys that I grew up playing with my entire life. But, like, eventually got to the point where I was filming those basketball games. Like, I was still involved. I was still there. I still loved the atmosphere and just can appreciate sports in like a different light.
So that kind of answers one question I've thought, like, seeing all your video stuff, which is what really got me interested in you, because the stuff that you're making is like, you know, I messaged you and I was like, man, this is what I like. Like, this is like when I think about video, like I would want it to look like that. But a lot of your stuff is sports right now. And so I was kind of thinking, like, you know, I wonder what that connection is, you know, in that sports world. So interesting to hear that, you know, from a difficult situation of not making the team and something you had loved, that you still kind of pivoted into, I can still be around it in a different way. Had you made video or content like prior to that?
No, that was kind of, I think I basically ended up like kind of taking the year off. Not the whole year off, but I wasn't making videos. I was just going to school. I think that I started the next year, my sophomore year. I met this guy, Jordan Epping, who I had met a very long time ago. Basically, we had became friends in like 3rd grade latchkey class. Just running around the playground, like, just had to be somewhere before or after school because my mom worked and my dad worked and everything. And we played and played and played, and then eventually I didn't go to latchkey I didn't ever go to latchkey again. And he went to a different school, I went to a different school, until eventually, like, my sophomore year, he was a senior, so he's 2 years older than me. We were in the same cooking class together, and we just, like, honestly just kind of rekindled that friendship. He was a insane entrepreneur as well, and I think that's kind of where I learned and like got a lot of that kind of thinking from.
Is hit Epping?
Jordan Epping.
I'm not a Salem guy, and I'm sure some of the people that are gonna listen or watch this will be, yeah, no duh. But I've heard about the Epping family that like in terms of, I want to say real estate or entrepreneur stuff.
Yeah.
Is he in from that family?
I think that is his family. I'm not exactly sure how he's connected. It's through
Okay.
like grandpas and uncles and
Okay.
stuff like that. I know his dad used to do like home remodeling, flipping
Okay.
houses and like electrician and stuff like that.
Okay.
But Jordan, he had a crepe food cart when he was like 14 years old. He started a food cart. He started getting into festivals from his French class and stuff like that. And so by the time I met him, he was becoming decently established. He was in the Rose Festival, like the Bite and Brew downtown. And we just loved hanging out together. We took a piano class, cooking class. And he was like, we went out and filmed a video in the hallway on my GoPro one day. And like after school, flew the drone. And he basically taught me how to chop it all together because that's what he was interested in, was video. And he kind of taught me, oh, look, you just do this, just do that. And then boom, you got a really cool video. And it all just kind of started to click of like how people have been doing this for so long. And yeah, our friendship just grew. And basically he was like, hey, how about you come work for me? So I was like, okay, that sounds like a blast, going around to different festivals, Portland, all over the place, making crepes, serving frozen lemonade all day. Worked for him and saved up enough money to buy my first drone. He had an aerial photography business at the time, and that kind of sparked my interest a little bit. And so he ended up like basically doing crepes and aerial photography for construction companies, real estate companies. He was like 17, 18 years old doing that. And I was like, dang.
Wow.
And so, yeah, he ended up joining the Navy, selling his drone and all that stuff. But he really kind of pushed me into all of that. And just my brain just started going after that. And I've just been running with it ever since. But like, I give a lot of credit to him. I think he really kind of pushed me into the space, got me into the McNary media production classes, where I was just honestly at McNary, I was like dropped into the highest media production class, and they were like, okay, do this, do that. I was like, I don't really know how to edit. I had to figure it out. And I think that's kind of what made me who I am today. Like I didn't really learn super traditionally. I kind of learned what I had to when I had to, and I still am. So yeah.
So well, for example, like when you came in here, I said you were asking me about the equipment, and I said, I'm not you. My buddy Daniel, that I always give credit to, I knew nothing about the cameras. He does all the editing. He uses Adobe Premiere. I'm thinking about trying to learn a little bit of that, just how to chop some stuff up and put out some more reels. Because like I said, he just had his 5th kid. He's got a day job. So he's doing the heavy lifting with putting it all together. But I just thought, if I knew how to chop it up, I could put out a lot more content and reels. But do you do all of it? Like you're shooting, you're editing thing, like how to do all of it?
Yeah, basically, I say I do like start to finish content creation for businesses and individuals, and I love understanding how everything works and just kind of having my hand with full control over like the projects that I get to handle, because I've worked with like just growing. I know it's difficult to work with, not that it's difficult to work with other people, but for some things it's just easier to have yourself working on the project, especially for like smaller people. But I also think it's like important to like bring other people in or like let other people watch you so that you can kind of educate and so people can understand how stuff like that works.
Yeah.
In a sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Looking at some of your stuff, especially recently, like you got some serious equipment. One of the videos was like, I think you guys were down at the waterfront, and it wasn't, someone else was kind of holding what I was looking at, but like I don't know if they're still called gimbals. Like I have my little gimbal. I don't know if the bigger ones are still called a gimbal. But it looked like you had some serious equipment going on.
Yeah, we have a lot. Right now I'm just like a freelance videographer. but I'm pretty well connected, I would say, and I work with a lot of different people who do the same thing as I do, and I think that's the way to kind of grow and, you know, make friends in that space and people that you share interests with and that you can work together to get bigger projects or just help each other grow. Like, I wouldn't be here today without like all of the people that have helped me. So yeah, that shoot at the riverfront, that was a shoot for somebody who was running for mayor.
Okay.
And so that was like one of my first political videos that we got to kind of produce. I didn't do too much directing. It was mainly just producing. They kind of had a really good idea of what they had in mind. But we ended up interviewing like 8 to 10 separate people along the waterfront, like an all-day thing. 2 camera setups, microphones, lighting, and stuff like that. It was interesting. One of the bigger shoots, I would say. But a lot of my shoots are usually just me, smaller, and producing social media content for businesses a lot of the time.
Okay. Which I'm definitely learning kind of how that space, like I was talking to my dad last night, and I was telling him about you coming on and a few other recent conversations. You know, he was like, well, what is social media management or agents, like, what does that even mean? And I was like, honestly, like, I don't know if I fully grasp it, but my understanding is there can be people or businesses that either they don't know how to make content, they don't really want to make content. You know, maybe they do know how to do it, they just don't want to do it. And then there's someone that's literally helping them create and get it out and the different platforms. And I mean, I've learned enough right now that like I feel like Facebook functions different than Instagram, and TikTok's different. Like the little bit that I know, like I kind of just put the same thing out right now on each platform. But like what I'm doing, Instagram by far is the thing. I have not figured out, you know, exactly kind of, but I was trying to explain to him, you know, like everything's a little bit different. And so, you know, you have someone that like, they know kind of what should go out. And
Totally.
But I've been, you know, having Kara on here, talking to Rick the other day, Brandon. I didn't realize that, not like, I thought like someone would do everything, but then I've been learning like, no, we'll collab on some stuff, or they might help me with the video, or they might like, I didn't realize all that was going on as well in this space. Which is cool. Like it was cool to like, oh, you're kind of working with you and
Totally
kind of work, you know.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like I just like grow and learn so much more by working with different people every time. Like I've gone and collaborated with Kara. We just have great conversation, you know, shot some content. Guys like Jacob, done some work for Cole, I know, which has also been on the podcast. But just like, yeah, I would totally agree.
Yeah. Yeah, Kara's the one that I want to say you had just started following the chair, but then she was on, and every person that I have on, I usually will ask or just say to them, you know, if you guys know anyone that you feel like would be a good fit for this, you know, let me know or connect me, because it is nice to have like this. Now it's starting to grow. Now that there's certainly people like asking to be on, but it is nice for me to like kind of know a little bit like about who the person is, or someone says, oh no, I know them, like, you know. Definitely. And so Kara had sent me your stuff, and I was like, yo, I think he just started following my page. So that's when I looked, and then I was like, oh man, this is like, so shout out to Kara, because she was the one that was like,
shout out
hey,
Kara.
you need to talk to Ian. But yeah, I mean, recently I've kind of learned like a lot of you guys are collaborating together, which is great. I mean, I'm starting to kind of, hey, you talk to you and you talk to you.
Start
as I'm getting to know
together.
People that are on here, I'm like, hey, you guys should talk. Maybe there's something, you know, you guys can work on together. So yeah, that's been neat to kind of in this community see like, oh, these people are already working together, and you know, some of the stuff I didn't even know, but it's like, oh no, I've worked, like you saying, like, yeah, I did some stuff with Cole and whatnot. And when I was looking at your page, some of the stuff that certainly caught my attention is some of the people you've been working with, which made me think, man, what's the story there? How did he get connected with Jordan, with the Bills? And it looked like you were in Miami with Tyreek and Paul. Was that a podcast?
Jake Paul, yeah.
Jake Paul?
Yeah.
So how'd that all come about?
That's a little bit of a crazy story. Basically, when I was in high school, I was in high school. It was my senior year or just 1 year out. There was this guy I'd found online, Instagram, and I've always been like reaching out to people and connecting with people through Instagram, wanting to know if they want to go out and talk about business or kind of what we're doing, how we can work together. I saw this guy online named Irvin, loved his videos. So I messaged him and I was just like, hey man, looks like we're in the same area. Your content is amazing. Would love to go out to coffee with you sometime. And so he agreed. And
which I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop you.
Yeah.
That is such a great thing to do. You know, I think one of the layers to why I'm doing all this is to try and communicate that there's enough for everybody, and that there's nothing wrong with someone that's in the same space that you're doing. There's nothing wrong with, hey, I love what you're doing. Would you be open to having some coffee with me? It's so often in society where we think there's not enough, or the competition, or but like the fact that you're willing to like say, hey, I love what you're doing, you know, can we get together? It's just, you know, it kind of, we say it and it sounds simple, but like it can be huge. That can be
changed my life for sure. Like I'd say changed my life just from like DMing somebody, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
so sorry about cutting you off,
no,
but I just
good.
like, those are some of the stuff like with this that I'm like, I'm wanting to communicate. Like, so people that are listening, watching, or, you know, that are like, oh, I kind of want to get into this, or like, how do he, you know, it's a lot of times it's not this genius thing. It's not this, it's literally, yo, I reached out to this guy that did some really cool stuff, asked to get some coffee. That's that, like, I, in these conversations, I always like to kind of like point out like, okay, here's how that actually happened, right? Because we all sit back and, you know, we look at stuff and, you know, it's like, oh, wow, this, that, I wonder how. And a lot of the time it was like, it was a lot more simple than what it looked like. So that's why I wanted to just like point that out. Like, you were willing to randomly to maybe get rejected, to maybe have someone be like, nah, no thanks, not respond, whatever. You lob that out there. You had nothing to lose. You compliment, like you're real about it. Like, yo, I love what you're doing. Would you be willing to get together? And now it sounds like you're going to share with like, yo, and this is how.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So we go out to like Archive Coffee downtown. We meet for probably like an hour. I was pretty nervous. I was like telling my dad about it. I'm like, yo, I'm going to go meet with this guy. Like, he's so legit, everything. I was hyped. And we go, I show him this like this video I'm working on. It was a commitment video. And I'm still getting the hang of things, you know, like still learning. I really don't know that much, but I'm trying. And I remember he watched it and he like laughed a little bit. He's like, oh, is that done? And I was like, maybe. I mean, I kind of thought it was, but I guess not anymore. And, you know, we just talked about like what he was doing. He went and showed me he was working for Good Notion at the time, which was a marketing company in Salem. And he showed me around the studio. I was feeling so inspired. And basically like we ended the conversation like, if you want to work with me, you need to get this, you need to get this, you need to get this, and you need to do that. And so I just took that, stayed in contact with him, and really just worked on myself and worked on getting to a point where we could possibly work together. And things were like getting a Sony camera so that we could match our picture profiles and stuff like that, and just like making it easy enough for us to work together. And eventually, once we continued to be connected and I continued to grow, he started bringing me on various different shoots for documentaries, dance videos, stuff like that. And one day I was just sitting in one of the offices that I work in, and he called me, and he was just like, "Hey, bro, what are you doing this day, this day, this day?" And I was just like, "Oh man, I don't know. What do you got?" And he was like, I knew that he had been working with Jordan and working with Avalon Sports, and I I should have questioned him more about that and wanted to learn more, but I just saw he was crushing it, and I just wanted him to, continue to do it. I knew that, when you're supporting other people, that it will come back around.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but he called me. He was like, "Yeah, like this documentary that I've been working on is premiering in Buffalo, New York this day, this day, this day. Like, what are you doing? We need an extra shooter." And I was just like, "What the heck? What the heck?" Made myself available, and next thing I knew, I was getting on a plane for the first time in my life with Irvin, who I had met a couple of years ago, just over a cup of coffee, flying out to New York to go film the premiere of Jordan Poyer's documentary that he had produced basically all by himself, and that turned out incredible. And from there, that was my first kind of shot with them and those guys, and I worked my butt off and just tried to continue to create better relationships with everybody that was there and everybody that was around me. And it's definitely worked out. But that relationship right there, I think, is one of the ones that had fostered into something that was very huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, I would say kind of a life-changing thing, because I never ever really thought that I would be shooting sports. I knew I loved sports. I knew they were a lot of fun to shoot, but it can be one of those tricky industries to start making money in and stuff like that. There's a lot of people who do free work for people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get to a certain point of understanding your worth, that, maybe it's not so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also thought that because I never went to college, I never was in the Oregon Ducks media program to go and shoot for them, like I would never get the opportunity. But just by reaching out and connecting with people, like I feel like I've really been able to kind of put myself in all of these opportunities that I had always wanted, but never really knew how to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Man, that's a trip. Just reaching out for some coffee.
Yeah.
And then you're in Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question. I guess this is something I've never really Googled, or I don't know, but when the term producer, director, so just kind of technically speaking, what does a producer do as opposed to like a director do? Like I've heard those, but I'm always like, what does that really mean when someone's making video or movie or whatnot?
I would say a director is somebody who really like puts more planning into the shoot. It's someone who is involved a lot more in the thought and the direction. Maybe just taking into consideration like who's going to be watching the video, what platforms is it going to go on, what dimensions does it need to be produced in to be put on those platforms. So then how does it need to be shoot? What lenses need to be used? How's the script going to go? Where is it going to be shot? Like all of those kind of aspects.
So like a lot of the logistics to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think that's really what like makes things really truly come together, because you can just sit down and like shoot a video a lot of the time, but like when you start thinking more intentional about stuff like that, I think is where stories start to become more visible in the videos that you're making, even if those stories aren't being told.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. And Irvin, he's actually creative director of Avalon Sports, and so he gets to do a lot of the kind of work around there.
Okay.
But as far as a producer goes, I would consider myself a producer. Of course, I have to kind of put the logistics together for my own shoots sometimes, so I'm learning and gaining skill as that happens. But I would definitely say my strong point is probably still in producing videos, where my role with Avalon Sports is lead content creator. And so a lot of the time I'm just working with Irvin for him to give me direction, and then shooting that for him. And usually he's shooting as well, but he gets to kind of more hands off the project and
Okay.
facilitate and making sure everything goes super smooth.
Okay.
But he still does a ton of great work for them, and
So you're still connected with Avalon is the name?
Mm-hmm.
You're still doing some work with them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is that how you're getting to these other thing? Like,
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
It's Avalon Sports is a marketing agency that was based in Buffalo, New York. The owner's name is David Montez, who's got an incredible story. And I would say, like, I also owe him a lot. And just his hustle and everything has definitely just put us in positions to be successful. And I think we all work really well together and just love working with those guys. But basically, they help connect brands with athletes, and we basically can produce the content for those type of deals that happen, and anything really media related for these athletes and stuff like that. So when I was in Florida, like Tyreek Hill is one of the Avalon Sports guys, and so Daver and Irvin, they started the podcast, which is It Needed to Be Said by Tyreek Hill, where Tyreek Hill hosted a bunch of different guests with his co-host, who's also his lawyer, and just getting different perspectives from different people. Valerie Loretta was one of the ones I got to go to. She's a UFC fighter, and now she's like the first Latina WWE female, I think.
Okay.
As well as Jordan Poyer was on the podcast, but like Irvin got to produce the podcast with DJ Khaled, or not DJ Khaled, Rick Ross. I'm sorry, Rick Ross. But
Yeah,
just,
I
like,
think I
there's so
saw
many-
him in one of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I clicked on. I mean, I usually try to research the people that I have on here a little bit that I don't know, and so some of those things I kind of clicked and who's
One thing
who,
goes
and
to the
then
next,
I
the
saw one
next.
with Rick Ross was
Yeah.
in there, and then I was just thinking like, how does this? I mean, that's the kind of stuff like this whole podcast. I'm just curious. I'm curious like why people do what they do, and then how does this connect here, and how is some Salem dudes now in Miami, working,
Yeah.
um,
Lots of hard work for sure. And I've been doing this for like, I'd say 5 years now, almost going on 6 years. Started when I was 16, I believe. Just getting better, but after high school, I went to college at Chemeketa for 2 years. I had 2 years free. So did that. And then after that, I was like, this is going pretty well. And once I kind of just understood more about being self-employed, like being self-employed offers me so much that I think that I want and that a job could never give me. And I love just having to hustle and continue to, make things happen for myself in that sense. So
yeah. So Avalon is out of Buffalo, but then you said Irvin. He's here in Salem.
yeah, he's in Salem, Woodburn area. I know he grew up in
Okay.
Woodburn. But he does work for all kinds of people around here just as well as I do. He does real estate, works with a couple other different businesses, but he's really, really good at real estate marketing and helping out those guys. So
Okay. How did he get connected to Buffalo?
I will tell the story the best I can, or at least the best that I remember, but I believe basically Irvin was also connecting with somebody online.
Okay.
And they were chatting it up, and somebody was like, yo, come down to, I believe, California and come shoot this NFL camp. So he flew down to California. Somebody else that he was connected to was working with Avalon and Daver, and basically was like, oh, I've got a project happening out in Astoria, Oregon, which happens to be the same state where you're from. Like, you should come work on the project with me. And from there, the documentary got produced.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of the same situation, just like reaching out to people online and finding those opportunities and understanding how you can make yourself useful in like certain situations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was Jordan's documentary?
Yeah, that was Jordan's first documentary.
Okay. I feel like, and this is random, like a while ago, I seen something. It looked really cool. I don't know how this is before all the podcast stuff, but just in the world of, I think it was Instagram, I think I seen something on his page, and I was like, man, that's a super cool. And I think it was just the intro to the documentary.
Crushed it, yeah.
But yeah, I was like, man, this is sweet.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you before, I was with two of my buddies, and we drove through Astoria. And the other buddy I was with actually was like, because I had said we were talking about this podcast, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have a guy on here in the next week or two, and he's been doing some stuff with the Bills, and then my buddy OJ was like, oh, with Jordan, and I was like, yeah, and my buddy was like, yeah, he hosted me when he was in high school. Jordan did. My buddy was going to be a teacher at Astoria. My buddy's now a principal in Hillsboro, but my buddy was like, yeah, kind of when they were recruiting him to come be a principal, they like Jordan hosted my buddy, and they went, I don't know, to dinner and whatnot, but he was like, yeah, Jordan was the guy in high school at that time, and and so yeah, it was funny kind of hearing about that. And
Astoria is a small town.
Yeah,
Everybody knows everybody, and from the times that I've gone there, it's crazy. Like, I get treated like family down there, and a lot of the places that I go with these guys, doesn't matter like, you know, who they are or what they play. Like, I feel like I get treated as human, you know, and that's what I love about it. Is like, these guys are just regular people, you know, just like we are.
Right.
And
yeah, Astoria, like I hadn't been there in years, but we ate some food there as we were going through. But they got a lot of cool buildings, like the architecture, and like they got a lot of cool. I want to say in that documentary, I remember seeing like an old theater or church or something. But then when I was there a few weeks ago, I was like, yeah, there's it's an interesting town. Like, it's
definitely the Goonies was shot there.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's a little history right
That's
there.
That's right. Yeah, it was cool going through there. So, right now you have your own, if I understand this right, you have your own business, and then are you kind of like subbed out, like you're a subcontractor? That's kind of how that works.
Yeah. Right now I'm just basically all by myself. And I do work for different companies like Avalon, Bentley's Coffee, U.S. Market, soap companies, like Mr. 1920 Grooming, I believe. And then there's just like so many things that I've shot: restaurants, breweries, real estate, construction, the YMCA. I just did a huge shoot for this weekend.
Yeah, I've noticed you've posted some few things. Actually, I looked at something before you got here today, and then I was thinking, I wonder if you're shooting those things. And I know they've had their big grand opening
today. I think they opened, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Today's their first day open.
Okay. Ooh. Yeah. Yeah. Sweet video. Zach Stone, who has been on here, I know he's done some stuff too, with the YMCA. But yeah, it looks super sweet. The
amazing
building
facility.
and yeah. So, I mean, obviously you got a lot of life ahead of you. Personally speaking, like, what's kind of just personally your favorite stuff to shoot? Is it the sports stuff, or is it buildings or construction, or, you know, highlighting businesses, or like what's kind of like your favorite thing, if you will?
I'd say right now, I definitely think that like sports is where a lot of my interest lies, as well as just working with brands that have a product that can be seen visually, you know, or marketed. I just kind of seen myself drawn more to like the product space. But one thing I really like about video is that I can move into any industry that I feel like I'm gaining interest in, or like want to see more of, whether it's like I used to want to be a chef, and so like how cool is it to just go make videos for restaurants, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or stuff like that. Or if you want to maybe interested in insurance a little bit, like you can make some insurance content, and there's just content to be created around literally anything that you're passionate about, or literally anything that you're interested in. But right now I feel like product and sports is kind of where I lean more to. So
Yeah, I you saying like you can kind of make it out of anything. You really can. I think more and more these days, that's becoming more and more obvious. But there's so many businesses out there. I mean, including mine, like with River City, where it's like the podcast is kind of easy to make content and do different kind of stuff. But with like the insurance stuff, like I haven't really put a whole lot of energy of like trying to think about making content. Like, and it would be easy to think, well, it's just insurance. Like, what would you, but I know like if I, was to really start to put some real thought into it, there would be plenty of different kind of pieces of content that can be made about insurance. And really about anything. But I know like it's easy to just think like, well, I'm a painter, but it's like, yo, you could show a lot of different aspects of painting and make a really cool video of start to finish. And, this is how we tape it off and this is how we do the trend, where at least for me, I'm so visual, that like that could be really powerful for branding and selling whatever it is you're selling.
Definitely.
I see video and I'm like, man, that's the future. Like showing it.
It's really
like,
all what's getting pushed right now, I feel like, as well. So everybody's kind of, it's good for people like me, photographers, people who are in like more of the creative space, people like videos is the only thing being showed to people really.
Yeah.
And so there's like just a larger need, which I've seen, and it's been great.
You think about Instagram where like they start pushing the whole reels, and I see the funny photographers that are like, here's a reel of a picture.
Yeah.
But I'm like these platforms like literally are like make videos. And yeah, it seems like, that's where everything's headed. And for anyone listening, watching, that have business or whatever, like just know like there can be content, created of what you do. Like you might not see it, or understand, but like, I don't know. For me, because I was talking to my dad last night about you and podcast and social media and whatnot. And I was like, Dad, think about it. Like everyone's on their phones. Like all the time. Like we're all like always looking at some kind of video and so it's like the new TV, like everyone's on it. So now everyone's trying to be a TV program, or like, hey, subscribe to my channel or, so yeah, I mean, people in your space, photographer, videographer, like it's a great time.
Definitely.
And I feel like equipment, like we talked earlier, like, the barrier to entry 10, 15, 20 years ago was much higher, like
gosh, yeah.
for this setup, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20, like, I don't know if I would have tried to attempted to do it.
Or even if this was around like 20 years ago.
Exactly.
It was probably something extremely complicated, like only one machine out there that could do it. Yeah. But I think that the barrier of entry, I think that's one thing that holds a lot of people back in photography or videography, is like they feel like they want to upgrade their gear. They feel like they can't do this because they don't have that. And it's like so much deeper than that. It's like just understanding the camera that you have before you can move on to that better camera and still understand it, because the key principles are the same. It's not going to be this huge change. But just to understand how to work that small camera the best you can.
Right.
Before you move on to the next one, like, is so important, or else you're just going to be wasting so much money on gear. You'll become a gearhead, and just like that's all you're concerned about, not really making videos, just about what you have. And so
yeah,
I think
I mean that advice, it's good advice. When I started this, and I was asking my buddy Daniel, which by the way, Daniel, make sure to throw in some of Ian's stuff. I want people to, like Zach, we threw in, he was like, put the wake park or whatever here, and then Daniel put it in video. I want to make sure that Daniel puts in some of the stuff so they can really understand like what you're doing.
I can send you some stuff as well.
Okay, yeah, send me some stuff, whatever you'd want to put in here, and then we'll have Daniel throw it in here. But when I started this, you know, I kind of know a little bit of like what Daniel shoots with, and I was like, yo, do I have to buy the Sony A whatever's, you know? And he was like, no. He was like, what you're trying to accomplish, kind of just a fixed setting. No, you don't got to spend all that money. So even that was great to like, yeah, you know, one day I'm sure I'll have some giant cameras in, you know, or whatnot, but to get started, you know, and to learn and really understand some of the basic stuff, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars per camera.
And to have somebody to tell you that, like,
yes,
wow, what a huge setback you could have had.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Save you so much time, so much money. It's huge.
Oh, I'm sure had I not had someone like Daniel, like I would have just like, okay, what's the coolest cameras out there?
Yeah.
All right, that one's
Cha-ching,
5,000. Okay, give me 3 of those. You know, as opposed to like, I think these were like $500-600 a pop. You know, I got 3 of them for like, you know, I know what you guys that do this for a living and make money, like I know what that stuff costs and I get it. But you know, like for what I'm going after and what I need here,
it's perfect.
I would have never thought, honestly, I would have never thought when I started, like, really, like I could shoot in 4K and like have it look, you know, for that amount of money. And I like, obviously Daniel and his editing and whatnot, and all the settings that, like, basically the settings that are on here, like he set those. And he's like, all right, don't touch it from here. And so, you know, yeah, that's something to be known. Like you can get into it and you don't have to have the best stuff when you get into it. And try to, you know, surround yourself with people that are willing to, hey, here's something to start with and learn how to do this. And then you can, you know, because had you not, like with you and your story, like had you not had already been to a certain level with your knowledge and whatnot, and then when was it Irving that was like, yo, you need to get this when he came to you and was like, okay, you need to had you not already kind of had a baseline of like, it would have been difficult for you to then jump to that next level. So whatever you were already doing and starting with, you know, had you not had that, who knows if you could have really made the leap of, oh, I need to buy this, and this, and try to figure out this. So yeah, you know, just for people watching, listening, if you're interested, and it sounds like you're someone that if people are interested, send you a message.
Definitely.
Get a couple coffee with you now. Now you're going to be the coffee guy that people are asking to get some coffee with.
Yeah.
So, you know, as you are looking like the next 5 years, what are some of the stuff you would like to maybe do, accomplish? What are some of those dreams, goals you have?
Yeah, I think one thing would probably be not to necessarily just like move into a different thing, but I feel like there's so much more out there, so much more that I can still like try and experiment with to continue just like growing and finding what I love. And I love doing this right now. This is what works. But I just feel so open to just like trying new things still. Maybe like I would like to produce more, like maybe get into music a little bit more, or even just like self content of myself, just being able to teach online and kind of educate people in that sense.
I was going to ask you, like, because a few of the people recently, like Kara, for example, she was like, yeah, I have all the podcast equipment, and if I'm remembering right, sorry, I've done a lot of interviews recently.
No,
and I'm always like, is that what that person really said? And Kara's isn't out yet, but I want to say she's been sitting on podcast equipment for like 6, 7, 8 months.
Wow.
And she's like, I just haven't been able to like have the time to really put it all together. But you know, some of the people that are on here, I'm like, yo, you should do a podcast. I mean, I always think like, what a great way to really show like what you do, you know, and to educate and, just another way getting you out there. It's yeah, I think it's super effective. Do you know who Ellen Yin is? So she's been on here as well. And when she came on, I was like, okay, someone told me to have you on here, a few people actually, and I've looked at your pages and stuff, and I still have no idea what you actually do. And she's like, yeah, I get that a lot. And so like part of the conversation was like, what is your actual business model? Like clearly you're doing well and you're making some money and whatnot, but what is that? And my understanding was that she helps basically build like online courses of whatever it is you do. So because I was like, okay, so for me, for podcasts, like what would that look like? And she's like, well, I could help you create online courses where people would go and then they would purchase whatever course, and it's you teaching a certain aspect about whatever. So that I was like thinking about what you were saying with the educational piece, like you start doing some stuff and then, hey, here's some courses, and here's how I edit, or here's how I shoot, or flying the drone, or
I guess I think that there's like a personal brand. At least in my future, I see that there's like probably like a personal brand, Ian, and then like a business, like a marketing agency that I run or something like that. But to kind of keep those two separate, I think might be like a smart way to go about it.
Yeah.
I'm still like trying to work on those and build those, but yeah.
What do you think? Because I'm personally curious, because like what we talked about before with kind of how I'm kind of not branding myself on purpose. What are you thinking for like your personal brand? Like what would that, because as this is growing, like, and it's like, okay, this is starting to turn into kind of a brand. Like, what does that even mean? And like, what do I even want out of that? Like, I've thought about that. And then I'm kind of, like I said, purposely not branding myself and just letting this be everyone else that's been on here. But I'm curious, like for you, like what have you thought about that with personal branding stuff?
Definitely just like behind the scenes content and educating people on how I'm kind of doing things, and especially like what's going through my head at the time. I think that like that's something that so many people miss, and I think there's like opportunities to say that, but it doesn't always get said, what you're thinking and why you're doing certain things. One way I thought about doing it was like I was thinking about starting to Twitch stream my editing sessions.
Now, for old people like me, what is Twitch?
Twitch is like a streaming platform where you go live, and most of the people on Twitch are like video gamers.
Okay.
So they'll like play video games and set up their camera and their mic and just like talk and be super funny while they're playing video games, or like,
okay.
And they'll live stream it. People are like fans and they can donate and stuff like that. But I kind of saw it more as
they can
like,
donate money.
Yeah, they like donate to you as you're playing, and so some people have full-time jobs like as Twitch streamers, and they've got endorsement deals and like brand deals, and like they use certain kind of keyboards or certain kind of mouses and play certain games and like stuff like that. Like Ninja and Fortnite.
Okay.
He's a Twitch streamer, and he was like the biggest Fortnite player for a while.
I've heard that name.
Pretty big a couple years ago, but
I've heard Twitch. I had another friend try to explain it to me, but I still was like,
yeah, I haven't done it yet. I watched like a couple of different Twitch streams. Like I'm on the app a little bit. I watch it a little bit, but mainly just to like educate myself more on that platform.
Okay.
So yeah, I see that as just a good platform to make that happen.
So someone sitting there gaming, filming it, and Twitch is just a vehicle, if you will, to live stream, and it has different functionalities within it to donate money. Like people are donating money because they just enjoy watching that person game. Definitely. Or that person's showing them how to be better at the game.
Or like there's like things that they might do while they're playing, like, oh, first person to donate like $10 gets a shout out or something like that. So someone donates $10 and their name flashes on the screen, or like they get to show whatever message that they wanted to type, and that message would go to like your entire all your viewers or something like that.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm still learning, but something like that is like if you have a message to get out or like something like that, you could pay and then it'll come up on the screen. But
okay.
Yeah.
Because who was it? Was it Jacob Espinoza? Someone, because Jacob, he like I said, I'm not on Twitter. I don't know about Twitter, but he was like, he told me, he was like, I got a pretty good group following me on Twitter, and he hit me last night with something, but I still don't know how to look at it because I don't know Twitter. But and maybe it was someone else, but they said something about that Twitter has like a live functionality, and maybe it wasn't Twitter. But someone had said, have you ever thought about doing a live podcast and having people be able to say
yeah.
like, yo, I want you to ask Ian, like, here's what I want to know from Ian. So I've like thought like, well, how would I do that?
Yeah, I think I'm not really on Twitter either. I've seen that they like released that, and it's basically like a live chat room.
Okay.
But like voices.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the app Clubhouse.
I have.
Clubhouse, I believe it's basically a similar thing. Like you just have a room with someone who speaks, and people can join and listen, or they can like chime in on the conversation, which would be really cool because you just ask questions in real time. Like it's like talking on the phone with a bunch of people, kind of. So
right. Yeah, I've thought like, I don't think it'd be something I'd want to do anytime soon. But I've thought like as this grows, because someone had mentioned that, and I just thought, you know what, down the road that might be kind of cool, like real time, with the engagement piece, to have people like, yo, this is what I want, like ask Ian this, like that could be, because you know, as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to be engaged, but I know there's a million other things that I'm probably not, like, hey, I wish you would have, you know, because now after these episodes come out and I have some of my close, whether it's my wife or parents or friends or whatever, you know, they'll be like, yo, you should have asked them this, or like, you know, like when you were talking about this, I was curious about that, you know. And so I have thought like, yeah, I can't think about everything, you know, and I'm sure I'm missing little, like, oh, I should have went to that. So I thought about the live piece.
it's a really good idea.
That could be cool. Like, hey, this, or stuff that like I wouldn't even think of. Like, I would have never thought to ask you that question.
and even like, I know, for example, so I got to work on basically producing Tyreek's some of his podcast episodes, and specifically like the one with Jake Paul was one of our biggest. I got to sit on set with Jake Paul and his team and my team, as they produced Jake Paul's podcast episode, which was on a whole nother level.
So Tyreek had Jake come on.
Yeah.
But while he was on, Jake was filming.
So basically it was like a partnership kind of deal where Jake Paul had launched a sports betting company, and they were creating a podcast around that, basically just around sports betting and sports industry, what's happening there. And so Tyreek came onto his episode, and then the next day Tyreek opened his Soul Runner retail store in Aventura Mall, and there was a podcast set there that we set up, and we produced his podcast there with Jake Paul as the guest.
Gotcha.
So they kind of like flip-flopped podcasts, and kind of talked about different things. But like Jake Paul had questions ready to go. You know, they knew exactly what they were hitting on, but it was also like very fluid at the same time. It was very cool to be on set with people who are really good at what they do. Yeah. You can pick up a lot.
Yeah, I bet that would be cool. I think about like when I start, you know, it's going to be interesting for me cuz my whole vibe with this is really trying to be super casual about it. And I've had a few people on here that have actually asked me like, are you going to have like questions? And for me, and kind of like when we were talking earlier about like just being you, that part's not me. Like maybe one day this grows big enough and then I am someone that does something like that. But I kind of just like trying to have just a conversation as if we didn't have the headphones on and recording. We were just sitting talking about this kind of stuff. I like that. But I have thought it'll be interesting where like you were like, hey, this is the first podcast I've been on. But like what happens when I have someone that comes on and they're like, this is like the 500th one I've done, you know, like because right now a lot of the people I'm talking to, they're like, I've never done a podcast, you know, and I guess now I've done over 20, so I'm getting more used to it. But I've thought like, what happens when I am interviewing Tyreek or Jay or that type of thing. I wonder what,
How can you make it different?
Yeah.
And how can you ask them something they haven't been asked before?
Right.
Stuff like that.
Right.
Totally.
And I figure like really what my game plan is in terms of like what could be different, because I've had a few people that on here that have said, yo, I've done some podcasts, but this one was different. Like I liked it, like different in a good way. And I think that difference really is, let's really just talk about you, right? Like not your persona, not the cheetah, like who's Tyreek, right? Like not like, that's going to be my thing is like I've lobbed out, I think I told, who is it? Ellen this, cause Ellen has a podcast. And she's had, some names on there and I think she's been on Good Morning America herself. Like
Wow.
she's doing stuff. But I told her, I was like, yo, I'm now starting to just lob out random IG stuff. Like I send Gary Vee some stuff. But one of like who I really want to have on, and I would say like he's probably top 3 like that I want to have on. I really want Dame to come on because like he's now Oregon dude. Like people are gonna relate. I know he's grinded.
Yeah.
Like I want to hear some of those stories that I don't know about him. So for sure, like he's up there on the top of the list. But Ryan Reynolds, who owns the Gin Aviation in Portland, he bought the distillery. And obviously he's Deadpool and he's all this stuff. And then Wrexham, the soccer club. But like I lobbed out and I was like, yo, like, and I know he doesn't monitor his IG, but I'm like, yo, whenever you're in Portland checking on your gin, bro, let me know. Let's do an episode. But I would just like,
That'd be sweet.
like him, right? Like we know him from all these different things, but the conversation of like, well, what's really you though? Right? Like behind all the Jordan Poyer, like, yeah, we saw that you paid someone to drive you hours to the game because you weren't clear to fly. Like,
yeah.
But my question is like, okay, like, bro, like, why do you really do that? Like, where'd you learn that? Like, where'd that come from?
The tenacity, the
Yeah,
grit,
like
all of that.
Yeah, like where does that come? Is that Astoria? Like I know when I look at Astoria, like I see a bunch of like hardworking people. Like is that where that's from? That's the kind of like that.
Definitely.
Where does that come from? Like, what's the stuff that like the people don't really know or so I look forward to as this goes on, continuing these kind of conversations and like with you, it's like. I've thought like, well, how to get into video, right? And because everyone that I talk with, I'm always wondering. Like yesterday with Marshall, you see him and you're like USA Basketball and LO coach and all this kind of stuff, and I know him a little bit, but I've kind of thought like, what really got? And then during it, it's like, oh, that's what really went from here to here. And so with like you're like, well, I was cut from the basketball team. And it's like that's always that stuff is like the interesting stuff to me about people. Like what, how'd you really get into this? Because then it's like, well, I wonder if you weren't cut from the basketball team. Wonder if you just like, nope, you made the team and then you did the next year and the next okay, I want to hoop in college and I didn't really like because I did play in college and basketball was such a thing for me. And then because I'm like putting myself in that, I'm like, wonder if I would have got cut. I wonder what
would you have done?
What would I have gotten
would
into?
You have traveled to?
Exactly. So that's part of what I think will be unique to this podcast. Is for me, that's kind of the beauty where I'm not sitting there thinking like, let me ask some great questions. I think when I just ask you about you, like that's just like knowing some of that stuff people don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's a piece of information that just came out that great. Like, so like with you getting into video, before this, I'm thinking like, like, did he always do video? Like, even like, because with your generation, like, you guys have kind of always had video. Like when I was in high school, we had the
Yearbook class, probably some photos.
we had the Nokia brick. And then the fire that was coming out my senior year, if I remember this right, there was the Motorola flip where the bottom part would flip, where you had the numbers. Like, that was fire if you could just flip it. Like, so like, we didn't have phones that took all this sweet video. So I was thinking with you, I'm like, well, like, you have grown up with video. But then to hear, no, I got cut from the team, and then
I was extremely fortunate, and once I entered into the McNary Media Production Program, like, the amount of gear that was just available for me and for my fellow classmates was amazing. Like, cameras on cameras, tripods, gimbal if you need it, drone if you need it, batteries, memory cards, studio, computers, everything you could possibly need. And I made a great relationship with the teacher, who I still hold, like, very close to my heart. I think he's a big reason why I'm still continuing to do it, Mr. Heimerdinger at McNary. But just, like, the trust that he had in me, and being able to take that gear home, like, I knew all along I was taking the gear home to go get a client, make some money. I wanted to actually produce something and produce things that were more meaningful and had a bigger impact than like a video that's gonna play on just really quick on Instagram. You know what I mean? I wanted to go out, like, I started shooting with real estate agents and stuff like that. I just wanted to move into it right away. And, like, I was broke. I was 17. I had nothing. But just to be able to have something that I could use was huge.
Yeah.
So just taking that and running with it.
And you said that was the first year McNary offered that?
No, they've been doing it for a long time.
Oh, they
I
had.
had just never known about it, honestly.
Okay.
Like, I
because I was curious about that. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I was like, man, I don't even know if other high schools do that. I mean, it's such a thing nowadays. I could see that being offered.
From what I've heard, other high schools, like, they don't exactly have the same experience like that I did. Like, they didn't get as much equipment, or like have that much freedom. But yeah, I mean, like, my senior year, I was sophomore year, I got into video. Junior year, kept making videos in class. My senior year, I was just there. I had a video class, and, like, I was an aide for the video teacher. And basically, like, I spent all my time just working on projects, and asking him questions if I need. And at the same time, I was basically part-time making videos at McNary, maybe taking an English class or something like that. And then at C-Tech, just getting to learn all about business, because I was in the business program. And yeah, I was just, like, so grateful that I had put myself in a position in high school just to be focusing on those two things. And I definitely think that it's made an impact, and it's why I'm kind of still doing what I am now. But I just got a lot of practice, like, at a very early age. So.
Yeah. Man, that's awesome. Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought about that being a class, because my generation, like, that didn't exist back then.
Yeah. It was like a news class, and there was, like, a news that'd be produced. There was, like, news anchors, and they had a script that they would hit on. Each time there was people that produced the news, and then there was people that produced the content that went inside of the news for the topics that they would talk about. And so, like, I got started going, and actually, I know this is my first video. It was the Trout Fishing Club. and yeah, I, like, went and interviewed the teacher, and then I went and, like, caught some trout with my dad and threw it all together, made the Trout Fishing Club video. And it's just, like, stuff like that people can see, and going the extra mile. It's like, go out and get some real video of some real trout, and pair it with the interview that might make someone actually join the program or something like that. But it was just kind of stuff like that I was producing at first.
Yeah. Well, man, I appreciate you coming by. The start of a friendship between you and I.
Definitely.
I'll keep tracking with you. Who knows? Maybe you'll help us do some stuff down the road as this thing grows. if anyone's ever on here that like you're interested in, let me know. Hit them up, whatever. And you know, if you have anyone that you think would want to do this or be a good fit, I definitely see us collaborating down the road.
Me too.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming by, and I look forward to watching your stuff. Like, your stuff's super dope. My Daniel likes your stuff.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, it's been cool for Daniel, kind of behind the scenes. Like, no one knows who he is, but you know, he watches all this stuff, even when we're recording like the cameras, but I haven't turned the mics on. All the different kind of conversations, so he always really enjoys kind of seeing that, and then some of the people that are in his space, like you and Zach, is kind of cool for him to see, like, you know, how's he doing what he's doing, what is he shooting with, and I definitely feel like there's a pretty good sense of camaraderie in the video space. I don't know what it is. Like, there's a lot of businesses that like they don't talk to each other. Like, I paint and you paint, but I don't, you know, us painters don't talk. I do insurance and you do insurance, but we don't talk. At some point I'll have some other insurance people on here, you know, just to show like there's enough for everyone. Like, yeah, I'm going to promote you even though I'm a direct competitor to you. But it seems like in the video space, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just that creative thing where you're like creatives already in that vibe, that mood of creating things and collaborating and making cool stuff. But it definitely seems like compared to other industries or businesses, there's like just a better natural collab.
Yeah, I think it's just because like working with other creatives, you can just get different people's opinions on things, and then also like I really don't feel like there's too much even competition in the space because everybody is so unique.
Yeah.
And I think that like businesses go to certain people because they can offer certain things or because they like their certain look. And like, if someone wanted somebody else because of a certain reason, like, and they didn't want to go with me, so be it. I want the best for like the person, you know, and, just, I really feel like there's room for more people. I feel like there's still lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
And you never know, like the next person who is going to step up and like make that move could be the next person who's really like shaking the industry or really doing something crazy.
Right.
So, and they don't even know yet. They haven't even started.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's true. When I think about podcasts, there's a bazillion podcasts at over 2 million. But then it's like, you know, if someone wants to have the conversation that I'm trying to have, then that's a fit. But there's a lot of other conversations out there that I'm not trying to have. And there's a bunch of other podcasts, a bunch of other places to go for that. And I got no problem with that. I know what I'm trying to do. And if that fits with people, sweet, let's do it.
Exactly.
You know, so yeah, I mean, certainly a layer to all this podcast and people that are in different industries is like, there's enough for everyone, you know, just be you, have your vibe, do what you do. And you know, if you're doing it long enough and sticking with it and grinding, you will build something and you will have people that like what you do. And, you know, and that will work. So yeah, man, I appreciate you coming by. It's awesome that this is your first podcast. You're by far the youngest person I've had on so far. But you know, and even if you got other friends or whatnot that, you know, like I said, I don't want to just have this be people my age. Like I want a full gamut of,
Definitely.
you know, I'm 40, you're young 20s. Let's talk to some 60-year-old, like,
Yeah.
all of it.
I think it would also be so cool to have conversations with people, like even if more people are involved in these conversations, like once you get so far, like to start bringing different guests together and like getting their opinion on the topic if they're in the same industry or something like that. So
Yeah, that actually, I haven't specifically thought about that idea. I like that. The space in Lake Oswego, it's big enough that I could have multiple people. I have had a husband and wife, and then Brandon and his dad Dan were on here, but this space is so limited. But Lake O, I could have multiple people on. One thing I'm gonna try and do is annually hold. It'll probably be the first one that I'm talking with is Gary, who has Wholesale to You. He makes apparel and stuff. We've been talking about doing the first kind of annual, like a mixer for everyone that's been on so far. Food, drinks, some music, but just kind of a chill.
That'd be amazing.
Where people could, yo, I watched your episode, or, you know, yo, you shoot too. Like maybe we could do something together.
I also think that's a really good idea because it's not necessarily like a networking event where you're trying to talk business. Like this podcast is about the struggle and, you know, maybe the more deeper and meaningful things, and like to have those conversations with other people. That's not just you. And like if everybody's there on the same page, I think that'd be amazing.
I like that. Yeah, I like that. And you sent me someone else that's up in Portland that does. You sent a message that does like gear, like or no, what do they do?
It's like graphic design and like product design and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Alex Hartman. He's incredible.
Okay.
Got connected through him through basically one of my sister's old friends. Both my sisters were connected to their family, and one of them was like, hey, like you should meet Ian, or like Ian can help you with this project. I reached out. We actually shot, he designed the, basically when athletes like get their new shoe, like they're going to get it in this huge box. So they have like 4 pairs inside. It's like an unboxing type of experience. Like he's the guy that creates the experience and like the box and like how is it going to open? What's the story behind it? Stuff like that. And so my first shoot with him, it was at some place in Portland, but we shot Dame's unreleased shoes, and he brought the box that was going to go to Dame, and like we got to shoot it. Dame ended up using the photos and got like hundreds of thousands of likes and stuff like that. But that was like a great experience, and just like so many of these experiences that have just kept on pushing me more and more towards sports related things. And like that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I know this is just the beginning of us doing some cool stuff. So
totally.
I
Thank
appreciate
you so much
you coming
for
by.
having me.
Yeah. Thanks, man.